Yeah, come on in if you are, oops, come on in, I have to admit. So if you just came in, we're still letting people in. People are still getting here. We're asking people to just tell us what boosts your spirits these days. Let us know in the chat. Spending time with friends, long walks, eating chocolate, meditating, gardening, yeah, not reading the news. Yeah, Tangle, I just subscribed to Tangle too. That's a great, I really like that. So presents both sides of things pretty fairly. Dead shows, Grateful Dead shows, I presume. A couple more people coming in. All right, give it about another minute here. All right, we'll get started. So my name is Bruce Noth. Thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome. I've been volunteering with Swing Left Peninsula since 2017. I couldn't believe it today when I saw we have over 300 signups for this meeting. Usually we have about 120. We've had 150 signups since the election. I think many of us are here because we're anxious, scared, depressed, and/or frustrated and want to do something. That's what brought me to Swing Left Peninsula 8 years ago, and if that's why you're here, you're in the right place. Swing Left Peninsula formed just after Trump's first election, motivated by the fear and anxiety that many people had. There were a few grassroots organizations back then. Now there's a powerful, sophisticated nationwide grassroots network that we're all part of. We are a volunteer-led group that focuses on winning elections for Democrats. We're an informal chapter of Swing Left, which is a national organization that provides guidance, strategy, and support for Swing Left chapters across the country. So we got started in 2017, and now we number in the thousands. Many of us live on the San Francisco Bay Peninsula, and we do have people from across the country. During national elections, we focus on California's Central Valley, Nevada, and Arizona. We also support special elections nationwide as needed, and other chapters, other Swing Left chapters, focus on other parts of the country. We often speak of action as the antidote to anxiety, and I have found that to be true. Agenda-wise this evening, we'll talk very briefly about the national results. We'll highlight bright spots where our work brought victories, and we're going to move on to next steps, including what you can do now and what to expect next year. If you have questions as we go, please put them in the chat. We'll answer them directly in chat or during our presentation. We'll also have an informal discussion and question and answer session at the end of the formal meeting as well. Next slide. And I think, Anne, you're on next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anne Fraun, and I'm one of the founders and leaders of Swing Left Peninsula. So I just want to start with a few obvious things that need acknowledging, but that don't need too deep of a dive right now. And Bruce touched on a few of them. First, of course, our losses are heartbreaking and shocking. No one expected a Trump trifecta. We don't know exactly what the future looks like, but we know there will be chaos and bullying and all around bad behavior, and that we need to do everything we can to counter whatever form that takes. Second, I also want to acknowledge that we're all likely in different places right now, processing our grief, fear, anger, confusion, and many more emotions. Some of you might be raring to go right now, raring for action, while others of us may need more time to work through these somewhat debilitating emotions, and that's okay. We'll welcome your help whenever you're ready to join us. And then third, we all worked extremely hard, as much as we could over the last 2 years. I'd argue that we truly left it all on the field. There just were too many headwinds against us. I mean, just a few examples we've heard thrown around as anti-incumbency sentiments, inflation, misinformation. I'm just throwing them out there. You know, there's so many more that will be brought up and thrown around. That leads into the fourth bullet. Like, it will take months to understand what all of those headwinds were against us, and where we made mistakes, obviously. But we, as volunteer leaders of Swing Left Peninsula, today, we can't give you the answers of what happened, what went wrong, but we do have a few very incipient ideas about what we'll need to do next. And so one thing we hope from today is to help lessen our collective depression, if only a tiny bit, by showing that our hard work actually did lead to some important wins and other bright spots, and that there are a few small ideas of what we can do right now to start countering the current situation. So next slide. So as I mentioned, and as we all know, the reality of a Trump trifecta feels overwhelming and huge, of course. But the losses are not as big as Trump and MAGA would have us believe. So for example, as you can see in the left-hand table in the very top box, Trump did not even capture 50% of the national popular vote. So this was not a landslide in the popular vote. It was actually a close race, meaning the pendulum can just as easily swing back to us next time. I mean, I know this is little consolation in terms of the Electoral College, and that's a whole nother topic, but we just have to remember this isn't a landslide. In the table on the right, you can see that Trump's margin of victory is much smaller even than Biden's was in 2020. And guess what? This is going down every day right now because more votes are being counted in places like California. So his little numbers keep going down. In fact, Trump is going to finish with one of the narrowest popular vote victory margins in the past 200 years. So the takeaway message here is more people, over 50% of those casting a ballot, voted for someone other than Trump. The GOP does not have the huge mandate that Trump proclaims they do. Next slide. So our team usually works on strategic, winnable races in 4 geographic areas. And those are Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and California. And while, of course, we didn't win the electoral votes in the 3 swing states where we work, we had several important wins. The Democratic Party ground game in those areas that we were all a part of made the difference in those victories. Our letters, calls, knocks, and donations in those areas really did matter. So first, our collective work brought in 2 toss-up Senate seats in Arizona and Nevada, which is huge, making the Republican majority less severe. I mean, those were, especially Jackie Rosen, it was a close race, so our work really mattered. We also won the 2 abortion rights ballot measures in those 2 states. And then if you look at Nevada and North Carolina, we prevailed in all of our target swing House races in those 2 states. That means there were certain House races that we knew were going to be close margin. We were working on those the most, and we won all of those races. And in North Carolina, it's such a bright spot. We won so many important state level races, as you can see here. These wins will really matter to the people who live there. And I can't understate the importance of that last bullet under North Carolina, the breaking of the Republican supermajority in the North Carolina state legislature. Just as one example, for one thing, that means that the legislature can no longer automatically override the governor's veto. We've had Democratic governors there for several terms, but we've always had a supermajority of Republicans in the state legislature who could override the governor's vetoes. So now that's broken. So then if you look down at the bottom of the page, we have the California races that so far we've prevailed in. There were 6 swing House races in California. And we've won 2 of them for sure. 2 are uncalled and getting closer by the minute. I do want to point out that for George Whitesides, especially the first race listed here that we flipped in California's 27th district, our team and all of our volunteers on the peninsula wrote thousands of letters for George Whitesides, and we donated money to him too. So good job, us. I have to, though, acknowledge our real disappointment with the loss in the Central Valley District of California 22, where Rudy Salas has been declared not victorious. And we worked our tails off in that race for 2 years straight. And so that's a big loss. And I know a lot of you wrote letters, made phone calls, and even traveled for Rudy Salas. And thank you for that. It's all going to help with infrastructure for next time, but we're sad about that loss. So I think I've covered everything on this slide. I think the bottom line is, while we don't win them all, our work really does swing many important tight margin races. So next slide. There's just a bunch more bright spots across the country. These are a few examples. A nationwide grassroots network made these things happen. The network that we're all a part of. So we're all in this together, working together now, as Bruce mentioned, in a pretty well-oiled machine. So first, we won 7 of the 10 abortion rights measures in the states that had them. Missouri is called out here because it has had some of the most restrictive abortion policies in the country. So that win there is unbelievable, really exciting. Of course, I'm from Missouri too, as many of you know, so that was super exciting for me. I worked on that a lot on the side. So second, you see here that all of the women running for Senate in swing states won. Those are Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, Jackie Rosen in Nevada, and Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin. This is just one example of where Trump did not have very long coattails, if any at all. So then third, for the first time ever, we will have 2 Black women serving in the Senate at the same time. Though they are the new senators from Maryland, Angela Also Brooks, and from Delaware, Lisa Blunt Rochester. And then finally, new U.S. House member Sarah McBride from Delaware is the first trans person ever elected to Congress. So next slide. So this is just a little pause to say that everything you've done in the past year or 2 or months, whatever, whenever you joined us, contributed to the bright spots that we've just reviewed and more. And so we just can't thank you enough. We should be saying it on every slide for all of the letters, calls, door knocks, donations, and more that you helped pour into these efforts. Next slide. Okay. So I just updated this. I've been checking these numbers like religiously a couple times a day. So you probably know there are still some uncalled House races. There are 5. The Republicans right now for their total have 218 seats, which gives them the official majority. The reason I put -3 next to their number is because so far Trump has tapped at least 3 of those members to join his administration. If they are concerned, I mean, we know some of them are way out wacko, but if they are concerned, confirmed, they will bring the Republicans' numbers down to 215 for a bit, depending on the state laws of where those fellow people come from. So then there, as I said, there are 5 races still too close to call. Here they are. I just want to point out that at 1 o'clock this afternoon, the race that we've been working on hard, California 13, which is the 3rd one listed there, had Adam Gray, our Democratic candidate that we've been supporting, behind by almost 2,400 votes. So just in the last few hours, that has come down to just being behind by 227 votes. So fabulously, amazingly close. And then in the next race, California 45, Derek Tran, another one of our target races, has pulled ahead by 102 votes. Yesterday, he was ahead by 38 votes. So the late votes that are counted usually in California tend to be Democrats. So we are hopeful on both of those seats. You can see there's 5% of the votes still to be counted in those 2 races. So there are several ways to help in these 2 California uncalled races. We have 1 week exactly until next Tuesday, the 26th at close of business to help win these races. That's the deadline for counting in these races. So the main thing we are doing for these 2 Democrats, Adam Gray and Derek Tran, are curing ballots with calls, door knocks, and donations. And ballot curing, for those of you who might not know, entails reaching out to Democrats whose ballots have been pulled aside and are at risk of being rejected for things like signature abnormalities and other technicalities. So we are making calls and door knocks to those people who are on the list at risk of being having their ballot thrown out, and or we're donating to the candidates so their staff can really work around the clock to do that work. So we're putting the links for these opportunities to help in those two races in the chat, and we'll probably send them out tonight or tomorrow as well, because time is obviously short. So anything you can do to help before next Tuesday with those two races will be so helpful. Obviously, any seat we add to our tally now will help minimize Trump's sway in Congress, and will also make our job easier when it comes time for the next 2026 congressional elections. So I think now we are going back to Bruce.
Sure enough. Thanks, Ann. Yeah, so there's endless prognosticating and finger pointing about why we lost the federal elections. Ignore all that, for as Ann said earlier, it'll take weeks or months to learn from the data and to figure out what's effective going forward. We expect future election work to be a combination of the traditional ground game, which includes letters, voter registration, canvassing, phone banks, etc., with an increased emphasis on countering the right-wing propaganda machine, which Laura is going to tell us more about later. Next slide, please, Richard. Thank you. Yep. The grassroots are much better organized and more sophisticated than in 2017. We've learned a lot over 8 years. We've gone from small numbers of people gathering to figure out what to do and how to do it, to large numbers of volunteers donating money and working together to win elections. Back then, we barely knew that there were red districts in California. Now we're well versed in those districts. We work with local grassroots organizations in them, and the California Democratic Party, now known as KDEM, works closely with us and the Central Valley campaigns. We fielded hundreds of canvassers and made tens of thousands of calls over the past months in the Central Valley and Nevada, and did much more as well. In the good old days, we only knew how to meet in person or maybe over a conference call. Now, thanks to the pandemic, we all know how to use Zoom. That makes it easier to meet and have sessions like this one with large numbers of people. And Zoom enables nationwide training and collaboration. For example, we just had victories in North Carolina that stemmed from a network of activists on both coasts, helping the North Carolina Democratic Party get organized and grow. Next slide. Thank you. So there are races that we would all love to win, like defeating Mitch McConnell, but we can't win those. So we, Swing Left, we won't put time or money into those races. We focus on races that we can impact. Swing Left National has a team that identifies strategic races where our work will either defend a vulnerable Democrat or help defeat a vulnerable Republican. We follow their guidance, as well as that from insightful experts such as Simon Rosenberg. Next slide, please. So we're coming up on an off-cycle year, meaning there aren't nationwide elections for the House, Senate, or presidency. There will be, as Ann said, there's going to be special elections for several House seats, thanks to Trump's appointments in 2025, as well as important state-level races. We team up nationwide to win these elections, which helps build our skills and our connections. It boosts our spirits and is perceived as a bellwether for the nationwide elections in the following year. In 2023, which was our last off-cycle year, we had important victories. We propelled a Democrat to the mayor's office in Jacksonville, Florida, which is DeSantis's state. We flipped the Wisconsin State Supreme Court to a liberal majority, which got rid of their gerrymandered districts. In Ohio, we protected abortion rights through a state constitutional amendment, and that required winning 2 special intentionally confusing for the electorate elections. And then looking at the state elections in this off-year cycle, in Virginia, the governor and entire state legislature is up for election, and the New Jersey governor is as well. So we can look forward to those later in 2025. And looking even farther ahead, there'll be important U.S. House and governor races in Nevada and Arizona in 2026, as well as important state level races. So we're going to know more about the special elections as we enter 2025, and we'll have more information then. And I think, Laura, now we're over. Now it's.
Yeah.
So Laura,
Okay.
go ahead.
So yes. So what can you do? You can, if you're a returning volunteer, you've probably had lots of reasons for coming. If you're a new person and you've never come to a Swing Left Peninsula meeting before or done any kind of organizing or activism before, you want to know what you can do. So the first thing you can do relates to things that are happening right now. Anne already went over ballot curing volunteer opportunities and donor opportunities. Again, those links are in the chat. We'll be sending them out to anyone who signed up for this meeting. If that's the kind of thing that you want to do, like what can I do tomorrow, the next day, we have 2 suggestions for you. One is to sign up for Jessica Craven's newsletter that's called Chop Wood, Carry Water. Jessica has contacts all over the place, and she fills her newsletter with things that you can do, including you can call about legislation. There's actually a bill now that has to do with the tax status of organizations like Swing Left that I just made a call for that I had never heard of. And that's the kind of thing that Jessica will have. She'll also explain how to call about Trump's cabinet nominees and that kind of thing. And then the Democratic grassroots family has grown exponentially, and we all kind of specialize a little bit in different things. So Swing Left is known for doing excellent electoral work, to making sure volunteers have a good experience, they're trained, their time is well used, they know what they're doing. Indivisible is another sort of sister organization in the movement, and their specialty is being really loud, putting pressure on politicians, making noise, having events that generate media coverage, that kind of thing. So if you want to make noise now about what Trump is doing or planning or attempting, and you want to do it in a group, and you want to do it, downtown, I really encourage you to go to Indivisible and find your local chapter, and you can meet like-minded people and get to work immediately. So the links for both of those will be in the chat. Next slide, please. The next thing you can do, I think we've alluded already to, there's an information ecosystem on the right, and we just don't really have an equivalent on the left, the Democratic side, and the traditional media that someone like I used to certainly rely on, the newspapers, cable news channels, didn't do a good job. I won't say worse than that, but we're going to have to build our own media ecosystem where we can go for reliable information that doesn't both sides, fascism and democracy, all that stuff. So here on this slide are some suggestions about where to go for better information and simultaneously support these networks that they're growing like weeds. They're getting really big. So the first 2 I want to talk about are Midas Touch Network and Courier Newsroom. If you're the type of news consumer for whom online news is like, well, I used to read the paper and now I go to the website, www.latimes.com, and I read the articles and I click on some video links. These are going to look strange to you. They make content in multiple formats: videos, podcasts, text. They'll email you. It's not like one place you go and all the news is right there. So if you're already used to that, you're already used to that. And these are pro-democracy sources of news. Midas Touch Network has the most views on YouTube, more than Fox. Now, Courier Newsroom was built to remedy the demise of local newsrooms around the country, and their first locations are in battleground states. The recent one they opened was in Nevada, and it was launched in English and in Spanish. The Spanish version is called El Nevadense, and it's not a translation. It's its own, it's its own thing. for Spanish-speaking consumers. Okay, Tono Latino, which is founded and run by Sylvia Salazar. Sylvia is an immigrant from Colombia who immigrated here to go to college, then worked in tech, and then in 2017 founded Tono Latino. She has a foot in both worlds, and she has insights and ideas that I just have never seen anywhere else. And we've learned a lot from her as non-Latino allies working in Latino communities. Everywhere we work have huge Latino communities, of how to do a better job of doing that. She's also, so she makes content in both languages, video content, and she just launched yesterday, it's good timing, a Substack, which is it's mostly a text-based service that you can sign up for, and you'll get emails into your inbox. And she really launched it for non-Latino allies of Latinos. It's only in English. And the point is to educate us about how to be better allies, like, I'll just leave it at that. As we've worked more and more in these communities, we've gotten better and better at working. For example, we now have Spanish backup translation at any Canvas, any phone bank. So if you're English only and the person you're speaking to is a Spanish only person, you can immediately get translation services. So that kind of thing. But again, Sylvia has so many more ideas. So I really encourage you to sign up for that. And lastly, Abortion Every Day. This is also a Substack. All of these links will be in the chat. We'll also send them all out. And she reports on reproductive freedom, attacks on it, efforts to safeguard it, what's happening in all 50 states. It's a concentrated dose. And when I started reading it, I honestly couldn't believe I hadn't heard of 95% of what was in there. So those are just suggestions. And you can sign up for all of these for free. It doesn't cost you anything. However, if you kick in, usually the annual fee is less than $50. If you kick that in, it helps them get bigger, and that's what we need: bigger pro-democracy media. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and the last thing is I have a question for everyone. You may remember that in 2017, after Trump was elected the first time, we have to say now, a guy named John Ossoff ran in a special election, a Democrat ran in a special election in Georgia. And it was the first election after Trump's election. And just put in the chat a quick guess of how much money John Ossoff raised in 3 months. I'll count to 30 in my head. How much money did he raise in that special election in Georgia right after Trump was elected, so early in 2017, for the whole campaign? 3 million, 100,000, 2 million, 10 million, getting closer, yeah. 5 million. Okay, yeah, it was 8.3 million. The most expensive House race there had ever been up to that time. And I think that was the distress of people who wanted to express in a tangible way, I'm distressed, so I'm going to back the first candidate who comes along. I think they probably were burning that money in the campaign office because there was no way for him to spend that much money effectively. So let's not do that again. Now we have this whole democratic ecosystem where small dollar donations have a really big impact. And I want to tell you about two of them that are related here. One is called Run for Something. They recruit and train Democratic candidates to run, often very young people, running for city council or school board or local races, and they build the Democratic bench everywhere, right? And they also try to raise money for those people's campaigns, but they're primarily a recruiting and training organization. Every State Blue is kind of an interesting complement to that, in that they aggregate small donations like $5 a month, $10 a month, and they award it to people running in, Democrats, I should say, running in red areas. So this was started in Ohio, where there were many counties, many districts where a Democrat hadn't run in years. And in this last cycle in Ohio, I think every single legislative race was contested in Ohio, except maybe one. There was like one oddity. And each of those candidates, maybe they raised some money from friends or family, and then Every State Blue made them a grant to bring them up to a certain minimum. So if they raised $1,500, Every State Blue gave them $4,500. And the benefit of running everywhere, there's many benefits to running everywhere, even in races you're not going to win. there's not benefit so much in giving, $50 million just for someone to run against Mitch McConnell. But there is benefit in running in these places that don't hear from Democrats, don't see Democrats, where I live, and the across the street neighbor might be a Democrat, and I will never know because I know better than to bring up politics. So they've solved an information problem for candidates and donors. Like, how are those candidates going to find me to get my $10? They're not. How am I going to find every candidate running in Ohio in a red district? Like, that's a lot of work, right? Moreover, if I'm going to sign up for $5 a month, it only is meaningful if I know all of you are going to give $5 a month, right? That's where the power comes from. So they're the broker, they're the coordinator, they do all the legwork for us. And 50 of us giving $10, that's another race they can run in somewhere. And it's called Every State Blue. It probably should just be called, like, so far only a few states blue. It's a startup. It's only a few years old. So the more recurring donations they have, the more states they can expand to. So if you're itching to donate to something that's really going to build power over time, I think these are two great possibilities for you. Okay, next slide, please. Oh, I donate to Blue Ohio. Yes, Blue Ohio was the forerunner of Every State Blue, and they're trying to roll it out to more states. I think it was originally David Pepper's baby from Ohio. Okay, this might be my favorite slide of the whole night. So we're pretty light at the top in terms of managing Swing Left Peninsula. And as I said earlier, we work really hard to make sure our volunteers have a great experience, that's planned well, executed well, their time's used well, their money's used well, they want to come back for more. And so if you're a returning volunteer and you think, I know how these phone banks work, I could help with the chat, I could, help train new people, I could, be a bus captain, I could, whatever, that kind of, we always need people who are comfortable doing the frontline volunteer jobs to train and mentor new people. So we'd love to hear from you on that topic. And then, as we've talked about, we want to try some new things, like lots of new things, potentially. And in order to do that, we need more people to form new teams. Like the management of Swing Left Peninsula as it exists, we can't really branch out anymore. But I think there's a lot we could do. If I start going into examples, I'll go really long. But we also think that you guys have ideas, and we want to hear your ideas too. So as part of this process of reflection and what are we going to do next, we want to take the time to talk to you. And so if you'd like to talk to us, you can put in your chat, like put in the chat, I'd like to talk to you or something like that. And we should have your email because you've got this Zoom link. So we'll send you a note and figure out a time to meet, or email us later at info@swingleftpeninsula.org.
Excuse me,
And
Laura.
talk in small meetings or one-on-one. Yeah.
Laura, if you put something in, please put your email in as well. So we can't always back out your email from your name. Thank you. If you put it in.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So Bruce is the data expert. So please put your email in the chat, in addition to your, just saying I'm interested or whatever. I think. Okay. I think we're done, right? Now we can go to Q&A. We tried to leave a lot of time for questions and comments, and I should say you're welcome to put questions now in the chat that apply to the whole group. And then after the conclusion of the sort of formal meeting, it's our tradition that we say, okay, it's polite to leave now. If you don't, it's actually polite to leave now anyway, if you don't want to listen to the Q&A, but we sort of cut off the formal meeting and just open it up for general discussion. So anyone who has a sort of narrow question or something, and they just want to chat with the leaders about something, you're welcome to stay and do that. So let's see, Anne, are you watching? So please put a question in the chat. You can also raise, excuse me, I should have said, you can also raise your hand, and you should come to the top of the line if you'd like to ask a question.
We're getting interested in helping out, which is great. No questions so far in the chat. Oh, here we go.
So clear. Okay, this is really interesting from Peter O'Riordan. I'm going to assume you don't mind if I read it aloud, Peter. I feel humbled by this result. I hope this isn't too controversial, but one thing I hope is that we fight the tendency to brand all Republicans as xenophobic, homophobic, misogynistic, climate-denying bigots. The down ballot votes on abortion and the highlights Anne shared show that voters are quite nuanced. If we want to win the center back, we need to stop vilifying 50% of the electorate solely because of the obviously obnoxious MAGA rhetoric. Yeah, I mean, I hope you've heard in this presentation that we really try to be respectful, of the other side. And, we don't want to live under a fascist dictator, but, that there's a lot of things going into that. And it's the reductive, like the other side are full of terrible people is not helpful. I completely agree.
And this is Bruce. There are some good sources in terms of how we phrase things and messaging. One is not Shinko Asario and a website called amplify.com. What was the other one I was trying to think of? So there are a few people out there who kind of address that kind of thing. What language should we be using? The whole thing about how we frame things to bring conservatives over to our side, for lack of a better word, to bring hardworking people over to our side.
Okay, Diane has a question about, it's basically being appalled that we lost so many white women to the Republicans. I don't have an answer for that. I think we need to again see what the data actually shows. And by which I mean, I was seeing early reports that young men went heavily for Trump, and I checked with the Civic Center, which they specialize in registering young voters. And they were like, no, that's not what happened. That was here's how they got that data. It's very suspect, et cetera. So one caution is to wait a little bit, wait and see. And then the other is, that's a big question. No, there's not going to be one answer to that question. How do we combat Trump's mobilization of the military to round up migrants? Looks like you're a candidate for indivisible and making phone calls. I mean, it's going to be bad. Let's be clear. With Trump, the worst case is always what you can expect, and I don't know if I can stop that or not, or we can stop that or not. The way I think about it is that we can be allies to those communities and at least shine a bright light on what's happening and make sure it's known about, and offer support, raise money for some specific need, that kind of thing. So really vulnerable communities and people aren't alone. So I'm not sure that we can stop it, but for me personally, and in terms of what this organization might do, that's how I think of it. Here's a really good question about what good does it do to grow, pro-democracy media, those kind of voices, if the people we need to reach aren't accessing them. And we don't need to, so what we're attempting to do is not reach the sort of hardcore person who's beyond persuasion and, they're very hard, extreme right, and they like everything that's happening. What we're trying to do, it's also clear, well, there are indications that many people sort of almost immediately regretted voting for Trump, didn't understand what they had done, were attempting to do the responsible thing for them, their own economic health, for their extended family, for themselves. And that's where, as I alluded to earlier, there's a right-wing, extremely loud right-wing information ecosystem, whatever you think of it. And there's a legacy corporate media that a lot of us who maybe weren't politically involved earlier, it just completely didn't do their job of informing, and of informing not the horse race, but the stakes, right? Sort of we have a would-be fascist on the one side and continuation, restoration, protection of democracy on the other side. So we need to have our own media ecosystem that can reach those voters. You know, a lot of people made their decision, you know, at the last moment. And the odds are they saw right-wing media more than the odds are that they saw, you know, pro-democracy media. That's my take on it. Okay. Interested in doing more? Yay. Yay. Wonderful. The exit polls are notoriously error prone. Amen to that. A lot of organizations popped up to support the Democratic campaign. Are you connected with any of them? We're connected with a lot of people, so you'd have to be more specific. But, you know, we're making new connections all the time. Clear which groups didn't vote. Yeah, too early for all these demographic voting questions. Okay, Rapid Response Network, Community Defense Project developed to protect immigrant families from deportation threats, etc. That's a good resource. Are we organizing members to go to CA13 or CR45? We are not organizing people to go there. But if anyone's doing it, we can connect you, Chip. So we can find out for you and connect you. We can tell you who to get in touch with if you'd like to do
Yeah.
that.
There are
We
links
already
in the chat.
reposted the links for how to go, to
Yeah.
how to sign up.
Okay, great. Tangle, never heard of it. I will take a look.
Angle's good. I just subscribed.
Dem policies benefit.
I feel like a lot of good suggestions are being made in the chat, and maybe we can try to pull some of those out and put in some kind of list.
We just got a
I mean, I
request
think-
for the ballot
Yeah.
hearing links again.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll put them in again.
If Fabio asks, are we doing anything to build bridges and reach out to working class voters or low information voters? I mean, yes, you know, you have to be able to reach people who are mostly just trying to take care of their families. They don't have a lot of leisure time, to make sure they have accurate information, you know, where they live, that it reaches them the way they reaches them, that it makes sense to them. So one of the things that Courier Newsroom does, for example, is they basically try to get into people's feeds. So if you're someone who gets your news by scrolling on your phone and it's curated for you and delivered to you, and you don't really browse around, you just get what comes up on your feed. Courier Newsroom is designed to show up in your feed. And I'll just leave it at that. But that's part of the puzzle that we're trying to solve with new approaches. Oh, thank you, Jill. That's very nice. Rational fact-based approach. Can you specifically repost? I think we did that. Let's see. Anything else, you guys? Other swing left leaders? Yep.
There will be a follow-up email going out.
Yeah, we left
Questions in the chat a couple times. It'll go out in a couple days.
I just want to reiterate, this is not an excuse in any way, shape, or form. We don't have all the answers, just like not even any professional pundits have the answers right now. We're volunteers, we're your neighbors, so we won't be able to answer all of these questions as we've said. So, but we really do appreciate the faith you put in us by asking them, thinking that we might know the answers. You know, all of us as just normal citizens, we can come together and do amazing stuff, which we've done. So thank you for putting your faith in us.
We are, yeah, not directly. No, we don't directly work with organized labor. Okay, so I think I'm gonna call a halt to the formal meeting. If you'd like to chat with the leaders, like I said, please, if you don't want to chat with us, please log off. And if you do, we'll be here for a few more minutes and to ask, discuss anything you'd like.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute everybody.
If anyone wants to say anything, you could raise your hand.
I'm trying to figure out how to do the mass unmute. Um, Okay, everyone should be able to unmute themselves if they want to.
Okay, raise your hand if you'd like the floor.
Okay, there's somebody, Irene.
Hi. First, I think you guys did an amazing job in a short period of time I was only on the letter side of it and then went to Nevada, but sometimes it feels like the work we did, because it didn't result in the big picture win that we wanted, that it's frustrating, but it made a huge difference. So I'm trying to go forward with a lot of good feeling about what we did and excited that if we do it a little better and a little more and get a few more people, that, we'll be on the other side of the coin next time. And with that said, I think it'd be really good to have some kind of grow the numbers event where, we just get a lot more people to join the Swing Left team. I know, Laura, you saw that I, sent out an email to, I don't know, I think I sent it to 170 contacts to get people to come to a work party. And the first time we had 36 people said they wanted to, and another 40 weren't available. Those are good numbers. So if we each if we each brought 10 people into the fold, we can get a lot more done.
Yeah, and a lot of my, I've lived here for almost 30 years now, and I've met a lot of people, and a lot of them know what I'm working on, and they kind of call me when they have a question. Like when there was that recall election for Gavin Newsom, I got all these texts like, what is this about? What's going on? And I'm like, you could help, like all of you could help me. I'm doing this for me, but I'm doing it for all of us, and it'd be great if you help me. So, I think I'm hoping that among my own network, there'll be more receptivity to that message. I think what kind of an event we would do, let's talk.
Okay.
Right?
But I think also if we reach out and say, we need this to happen over the next few months, people will be responsive, because right now they're feeling like, oh my gosh, we have to do something. So, I mean, we've got to get through holidays, of course, but I think we have to start being very active right away in the new year.
Well, I mean, I know you worked like a dog, obviously, but I have to say, for me personally, I'm exhausted. Like
I know.
and I'm not like ready to turn on a dime and do the next thing. What would what will really help that? I was very heartened to see the number of people who were like, "Yeah, I want to talk to you." Yes, I want to do. Because that's what we need. We need more people running teams. It's just we have to divide the work and conquer. We've kind of had 4 or 5 people sort of doing a lot of the work with some really important support from people who are working full time, and they do this on top of their regular job. I'm retired. And it was a lot of work. It was just a lot of work. So yeah, So,
And we would love to have some people help who organize in-person events. I mean, they're really important, and right now we don't have like that person, so it'd be great.
Okay, well, I'm willing to help.
Thank you.
So,
thanks.
I just wanted to add, like, usually, Irene, we have we don't have it in January usually, but probably in February-ish. We have a pretty clear map of what elections we're gonna work on in the coming year. So often we've done a kickoff event in February. I know what you're getting at with this momentum we all feel right now. I think we'll still feel it. We'll still
I
feel that
know, we
in
will.
February. So sometimes there's the need for just a social hour, and sometimes there's the need for a meeting with meat on its bones, I guess I'm trying to
Right.
say. I think that meeting, and sometimes we've done that in person. We've been able to find rooms in libraries that hold 100 people or more, and we've filled them with our kickoff events. So I have a feeling we'll be doing that in the coming year. I hope you don't think February is too late
No, no.
for a
and we can
meeting with a
also-
lot of meat on it.
Yeah, I think we can also do it by Zoom. You
Yeah.
know, to just, if all the people who have said, yeah, I want to be involved, if we could each bring like 5 solid people who want to also be involved,
Mm.
who we know, I think it builds.
Mhm.
And I'm happy to help with that.
Thank you. One fun thing has been getting to know everybody across the peninsula over the last 8 years. And Irene, it was a pleasure to meet you this year.
Thank you.
Completely
Like-
forgot. I was planning to work in thanking the ginormous letters team.
No.
And I forgot. So Irene is one of the ginormous letter team members. A lot of them were on the call, and
Catherine was on the call. I don't know if she's still on, but
Nice.
yeah. Well, I know you guys are at your point of saying, okay, we need a break, but that's a good time to tap some other people.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
we'll
Good.
take the holidays off and then. Does anyone else want to make a comment?
I just wanted to piggyback on that I think that there's going to be a fresh batch of people who maybe have not been as involved. I know that I'm one of those. I've had long COVID for 2.5 years, so I have not had that much energy, but after the election, it's devastated like everyone else, got on the mass call with through Working Families Party. And they were encouraging events within the next month to just kind of give space. And I'm doing that, and others are doing that. It's like finding a way to tap into that kind of fresh, and I have friends who are very involved politically who were like, we're not ready. We don't have the stuff together, just like you guys are saying. And so I definitely completely I don't understand because I haven't been in your shoes. I haven't been in it in the trenches so much, but I just want to say that I think there's a lot of people who, just like happened last time, will be like, what do I do? Because this is just not, this is not my country or the one I want to live in. So finding ways to tap into that new, fresh kind of,
well,
people.
Mary Linda, I will say, I was in shock, after the results came in on Tuesday night. I was up all night. That never happens to me. I love to sleep. And I was just like, someone said, well, were you like watching YouTube? And I was like, no, I was just staring at the ceiling, like wide awake. And what I found most heartening was all the people who came out the next day and were like, we're not going anywhere, and we're fighting, and we're getting louder, and we're, because I thought, how are people
Exactly.
going to react? Are they going to like close in on themselves? Are they going to, and yeah, it was just amazing, and that's kind of, again, that in 2017, we were building the plane and flying it at the same time. And this time you had people who were like, looked like they'd vomited the night before, gone to bed and got up and just like, they're going to keep going. They're determined, and It's incredible. And that, you
Well,
know, those
thank
are the people who can welcome all the new people, right? So, okay, I think, what was the name to the website for Waze? Yeah. Did someone answer that? Anybody else? I think we'll call it.
Right.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. We will definitely be back in probably February with some very specific marching orders. Everyone should rest and rejuvenate and take these small, actions now that we need to on the sort of, I know the new word isn't resistance anymore, but we have some resistance work to do right now on calling Congress and that kind of stuff as Maura outlined.
And-
So
And to everyone's point, you know, if we can get some kind of event together sooner than that, welcoming event, you know, we will. They just can't make any promises. Okay, thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.